La négation. Negation. So, you know already the simple forms of the negative. Ne pas, meaning not. Ne plus, meaning no longer or no more. Ne rien, meaning nothing. And ne personne, which means nobody or no one. And ne jamais, meaning never. And you know that to use the negative, we sandwich the verb or the auxiliary in a compound tense with the two parts of the negative. If you don't like the idea of the sandwich, you can go with the bridge version, that it's like a bridge. And so the ne and the pas sandwich the verb. You can see here in this first example, je ne bois pas. The ne and the pas are sandwiching the verb, the bois. If you have any compound tense, so in this instance it's passé composé, but the same applies for futur, futur antérieur, conditionnel au passé, and the plus que parfait as well, of course. So any compound tense, when we talk about the verb, what we mean is the auxiliary, that is the form of the conjugated form of avoir or être. So you're wrapping it around that conjugated verb, and then the past participle comes after, because the past participle is only part of the verb. It's not the complete verb. This is what we're talking about, the conjugated verb. So it wraps around, it sandwiches like pieces of bread, it sandwiches the meat in the middle, which is the verb. Il n'a jamais essayé. He's never tried. However, there are some exceptions to this rule. They are personne, aucun, and nul. These go after the past participle in a compound tense, so they're a little bit different. Here's an example. Elle n'a vu personne. Elle n'a vu personne. Elle n'a vu aucun, for example, and so on. So personne, aucun, and nul are an exception to this rule. Something to remember after a negative, there is that rule where the partitive article du, de la, de l'apostrophe, and de becomes de or the apostrophe. Here's an example. Je n'ai plus d'argent. Because we have a negative, that de l'argent becomes d'argent. I have no more money. Here's another example in the passé composé. Il n'a pas pris de viande. So if he had taken some meat, il a pris de la viande. Yeah, he took some meat. But in the negative, that partitive article becomes de or the apostrophe. Il n'a pas pris de viande. Here are some more negatives, a little bit more advanced. Ne point is not at all emphatic. It's also kind of a literary negative. It's something you might read in some elegant writing instead of just ne pas. Ne guère, which is scarcely. Ne que, which is a little bit special, and we'll look at that later on, which means only. Okay, ne que is a bit special, not quite a proper negative. We often have never again, nothing else, nobody, never no more. When this happens in French, they join them together. There's no such thing as a double negative in French, even though there is in English. You can only have one negative in French. You can just keep on stringing them together. They usually go this order. Ne plus jamais, plus rien, plus personne, and so on. Ne aucun, ne aucune, not one. Not one. It's quite emphatic. It's like saying almost not one single one, yeah? And ne, ni, which is the neither, nor, nor. And remember that in English, sometimes we make the mistake where the positive statement is either or, the negative statement is neither nor nor. And we sometimes make the mistake in English and put in a little or where we should put in an or. Here are some other things to look at as well. Ne pas un for countable objects. I just want to show you, for example, if you had, he doesn't have any money. He has no money. Il n'a pas de sous. Yeah. General kind of statement. But if you wanted to have, he doesn't have one coin, not one coin, pas un sou, you can say il n'a pas un sou, like this. He doesn't have one single coin. You use ne, nul for collective nouns. So pas un is countable, things that you can count. And if you're talking about those collective kind of nouns, like anywhere, any place, nul. Often you'll see nul with nulle part. That's really, these days, the most... where you're going to see it most often. Je ne l'ai vu nulle part. I didn't see it anywhere. Nulle part. Nul is agreeing because part is feminine. Ne aucun you can use for both countable and collective. And here's an example. Elle n'a vu aucun arbre. She didn't see one single tree. And there it is, that emphatic, not one single, yeah? Aucun arbre. That's countable. Or, il n'a montré aucun remords. He showed no remorse. or aucune confiance, so no confidence, so something that's not really countable. Personne, rien, and aucun, which are negative pronouns. These negatives, remember, can also be the subjects of verbs. So they can be objects. I didn't see anyone. Je n'ai vu personne. But they can also be subjects. And so when they're subjects, they have to come at the beginning. They have to behave like a subject. Don't forget, though, the ne must still come before the verb. For example, personne n'est venu. So personne, it's been the subject. And here's our ne coming before the verb. Personne n'est venu. Nobody came. Rien ne peut arriver. Nothing may happen. So rien is being the subject, ne coming before the verb. Aucune n'a répondu. Now aucune here is being a pronoun. Aucune n'a répondu. Aucune can also be an adjective if you put it next to a noun. Aucune fille, not one girl. So either not one or not one girl. Aucune fille n'a répondu. So again, it's being the subject at the beginning of the sentence, at the beginning of the phrase, and ne is coming before the verb. Ne ni ni can also behave a little bit like this as well. Have a look at this example. Ni son frère, ni sa sœur ne sont chez nous. So they can be a subject as well. Neither his brother nor his sister were at our place. And note where we put the negatives and the positives in English and how it happens in French. Just take note of that. Negative infinitives. If the infinitive is negative, not a conjugated verb, remember that both parts of the negative hang out together and they come before the infinitive. Il a décidé de ne rien dire, to say nothing. So both of those come together and they hang out before the infinitive. Remember though, the rules of the flag of object pronouns still applies. So he decided to say nothing to them. Well, just as when you've got the flag, you've got the ne, then you've got all the object pronouns, then the verb. All you're doing is just putting the second part of the negative next to the ne, and then the pronouns remain in their normal order. Il a décidé de ne rien leur dire. Again, personne is an exception. So it doesn't hang out with a ne at the beginning before the infinitive. It goes after the infinitive. Just as it goes after the past participle, it goes after the infinitive. So remember that it's an exception. Elle espère ne voir personne. Ne que is a bit different because it's not a negative, it's a term of limitation. So while it may seem to come after the past participle, in fact, what it's doing is it's coming before the thing that it's limiting, that is, before the noun that it's limiting. And this is also why it takes the full partitive article, because it's not a real negative. Let's have a look. Il n'a rencontré en juin que des touristes. So here we've got a past participle, a verb in the past participle. We've got something else happening. The que comes before the thing it's limiting, the touriste. And it's des. Yeah? It's taking the full partitive article because it's not a real negative. Il ne mange que du poisson. And then we've just got the ne and the que. The que is coming before the poisson, and it's a full partitive article. Here are some other examples. Elle n'a point d'argent. She has no money at all. Je ne l'ai trouvé nulle part. I didn't find it anywhere. Je ne le sais pas non plus. I don't know it either. Neither. Just something else to remember, the non plus. If you have aussi, also, in a positive sentence, in a negative sentence that will become non plus. And this funny little example, she left with no money or coat. Elle est partie, in the positive, sans argent ni manteau. And that's a little special use of manteau. Of ni, rather. Voilà, negation.